Welcome to Olds Mod 455. We've got a Kawasaki 250. It's like a Enduro model. Needs a battery. I'm gonna take the carb apart and go through all the stuff, getting it going. And that turns. Oh, the clutches. Probably got to all be lubricated and stuff. Brakes work. So this is the replacement carburetor, and it's identical to the one that he put on a long time ago. But this thing's been around for years and years. This is the original. So he said when they changed the carburetor, it lost power. So right now we're just going to measure the size, and the airbox doesn't even bolt up to this because it's significantly bigger. So he just had one of these air cleaners that you just stick on. If you've ever worked on bikes and you converted from having an airbox to just going with individual filters, then you got to richen them up because they're getting a lot more air than going through this restrictive airbox. But the airbox keeps you from, if you're splashing through water and stuff, water can get in. I don't even know how the air gets in this thing. Oh, there's holes. But you can see how restricted these are. So if you just put on a K&N filter on there, it's going right in and gets a lot more air, and then you got to jet it properly.
That's 1193.
Well, on this one. This one.
One 192.
It's just the housing must be a little bit different. When you ordered it, it was just a different, the castings probably changed a little bit.
You can see why that filter wouldn't fit on here.
Well, you can see how it fit on here on the back of this carburetor. And this back is really huge. It doesn't even match up. So that's why he had that K&N filter. The K&N filter breathes a lot more than this. So anytime you work on any vehicle and you can get more air in, now all of a sudden he's going to have to richen up the jet. So it doesn't even matter what this one is, but we will find out what the original was, and then maybe if they've got jets like 3 sizes up, we'll go to that jet and start there.
We'd use a magnifying glass to see all the numbers on these, but we got like a 200, what was in there was a 210, we've got up to a 280. And if you look at the holes, there ain't a whole lot of difference. But we're going to go 3 steps on this jet and see what happens. We got a Petcock repair kit here. Don't know if it's for this bike. I do know that it was leaking though when you turn it.
Now you got to take it and dump all the gas into a tank. We burn that off. And then hopefully when we get this apart, they usually make it where you got to squeeze it together to get it back together so that there's always tension on there. Because a lot of times when you move them, all of a sudden they start dripping. Some places they don't leak, and then the other place it drip, drip, drip. So a lot of these will have a screw that tightens up to the tank, and then it swivels, but you got to get it tight while you're holding this, and you don't want it tight and it's going the other way. You want it nice and easy to get at. Fuel gets to this level, all of a sudden it's splashing around, and it'll be start to kill, and then you hit the reserve, and then you go to this level. But this screen is broken, so dirt and stuff could get through the reserve. This one I think had a screen sock that went over it. We'll have to look inside the tank to see if that's still floating around in there. You got that O-ring there that you got to get out. So we got the hose off just to get it out of the way. We'll take this apart. You can see a screw there is probably, this piece has a ridge and it catches it. remember when we were working on that Harley, somebody goes, "Is Paul an engineer?" Like, he can work on anything. I don't know anything more than you guys. It's like if it went together, it comes apart, and you know, some guys now with cameras, I don't even know how to operate my camera on my phone, but you take pictures of stuff, or like my partner, he'll work on brakes and leave one side together, and you do the other side, and then when you forget how it went back together, you can always look at the other side. Remember I was telling you about, I think it went down like this. Screw down like that, but it'll come apart. You gotta get this little rubber deal out of here. You usually have like a groove that it fits in. It's brittle. It's lost its squish, you know. Now it's just spinning around.
No flat blade?
It's just breaking. And I poked my finger too. I'll have something to remember me by. These are rock hard too. I'm wondering if this was a screen. I don't want to wreck it.
It's pretty clean.
Okay, I'm going to take this screw apart. So all you're doing is you're lining up some holes. It's got that groove channel, that's where the screw was. So we're going to have to change some rubbers out in there too. Did you see it's a pipe going through? Then this one just goes to the body so it can work at a lower level. It's flush right there. A lot of times when it gets to that low and you got a gas tank and it's going over the frame, sometimes you get some splashing from one side over to the other. On a Harley, they got a balance tube. But you got to sit there, you've run out of gas. Now you're thinking, oh my gosh, maybe if I get it way over, you jump on it, you're trying to get everything over to the one side and have it leaning, fills up the float bowl. Sometimes you can go pretty far just on a float bowl, just enough to get up to a gas station so you don't have to push it. A lot of guys don't realize that when they modify their bike, it's making more power, it needs more fuel. And sometimes these little Petcocks are too small to feed the amount of fuel that the bike needs, and sometimes you got to get a high performance Petcock that's got bigger tubes on it, more fuel flow. You know, instead of having a little fuel line like that, they got big ones. And okay, dropped right into place. I'm thinking it went like this. So this is reverse thread. I'm going to go all the way down. If everything works out right, it'll, you know, I might be able to just swing it around, but if it doesn't, see, I think it's going to work out okay. So I got this one down as far as it could go. I don't want to tear up the rubber, but that's just all right. Then we can put this one on. Look at how puny this is. It really doesn't have that much of a tension on it. So we're pulling this down to adapt.
Who knows how old this is?
My brothers and I, we all bought the same kind of snowmobile. And it was way back in the old days, and they were Raider twin tracks. You sat inside them with tracks on the side. And one brother worried about blowing his engine up, so he was adding extra oil. And I went out and bought AMSOIL, and I was mixing it at 200 to 1. He was 200 to 1, you're gonna blow it up. And I was telling him, what the AMSOIL people tell you, is that when you have too much oil, it drops the octane level of the gas, and snowmobiles have pretty high compression. They're trying to make as much power as they can. He was burning, he blew up his engine twice, and I never even changed the spark plugs in the 4 years that I owned it. And I'd fire it up, go inside the house, get dressed up, get inside it, and from the time I took off, it would be pegged, and it would be patching out and spinning at high RPM all the time with the snowmobile, and his would blow up, and mine never blew up. I just had fun with the thing until it had crummy suspension. Everybody came out with better and better snowmobiles, and it was ridiculous. We couldn't even keep up. But when us 3 guys were riding together with all the same type of snowmobile, it was fun. It's not leaking. We can go through its paces there. It's not leaking. Down there. That's where it runs.
Is the choke, I think, is it down, is choke on?
No, that's lifting up that tickler that dumps fuel into the engine.
All right, this bike has an intermittent ignition problem where it loses a spark. Well, we just checked and we have spark right now, so maybe some of you have been looking at this bike through the years and the videos in the background. Get to hear it run finally.
You got the key on?
Yep.
Switch won't even kill it. So there's wiring situation that has to be done.